The court has made a mockery of itself for the last several weeks, especially the last 2 days. These justices are not exactly the brightest justices in American history. There are some great justices, 3 only 3, Scalia, Thomas, and Alito. The others are truly hacks. We have an American Politburo. That's what this is. It's an American Politburo. It's unaffected by elections. Once these individuals take their oath and they're on the court, they know by tradition and practice, in any event, they can't be reached by the body politic. And so they sit there for life, subsidized by we the taxpayers, their health care, their pensions, their salaries. And they sit around all day, every day, contemplating their navels and deciding how to rejigger society. Except for those who understand that they took an oath to uphold the Constitution, not maul it. Justice Kennedy has written yet another decision on gay marriage. This is really his third decision on the issue. His third decision, and all 3 are childish, are absurd, are superficial. He thinks he's writing to future generations. He thinks he's writing to the gay community. Thinks he's writing to the New York Times editorial page and the Washington Post editorial page. I guarantee you when he wakes up in the morning, sits there with his cup of coffee, maybe a latte, a little bit of quiche, he will immediately be reading what those left-wing, phony, so-called news outlets write about him. And they will be praising him. They will be slobbering all over him. And he'll be happy. That's what he wants. I want you to keep in mind, Kennedy has voted for the same-sex marriage case. Kennedy voted to empower Obama on the Obamacare case, and Kennedy wrote the decision about unconscious discrimination. And the housing case. Kennedy is gone. Kennedy is Harry Blackmun. And I can assure you, had Kennedy been honest in his interviews with President Ronald Reagan and Attorney General Ed Meese and a phalanx of originalists, conservatives in the Reagan administration, when he was interviewed for this post, if he had told them the truth about his attitudes and his philosophy, he never would have been nominated. So he lied. He lied through his teeth. Don't tell me he's evolved. He hasn't evolved. He's regressed. This decision belongs in the states. There's no federal constitutional authority for this. Don't hand me the 14th Amendment. Anybody who has a cursory passing understand of the 14th Amendment and its history know this is bull. The truth is that if those who support gay marriage wanted it enshrined in the Constitution, the only way to do it is through a federal constitutional amendment or Article 5. The idea that the 14th Amendment, a Civil War amendment, somehow reaches the personal policy agenda of Anthony Kennedy is an absurdity. It's a bastardization. They sit there day in and day out with their clerks, cloistered, thinking about how they're going to write clever decisions, and they're not clever decisions. Bastardizing the Constitution isn't that hard. It's done every day. But a lawless Supreme Court, utterly lawless, it's absolutely nuts. Doesn't deserve your respect ever again, even if it issues an opinion you like. It doesn't mean you have to disrespect all the justices. I respect 3 of them. 3 of them, because they try hard to follow their oath. But the other 6 just don't give a damn in this Politburo. And I've addressed this many times. It's precious when people who put out 1, 2, 3 books a year mock those of us who actually write our own books and don't put out one book a year, maybe every 2 or 3 years. Books that address the issues of the day. Books that have been addressing this issue among many others. The nature of society, the structure of our constitutional system. Well, they want to talk about meatballs or some sporting event. Fine, good for them. But this is the real deal, ladies and gentlemen. It's the real deal. And like others who get behind a microphone and whine and complain and beat their chests, I try to come up with answers, solutions, a recourse. And you'll notice the one real recourse that exists, the one that bypasses the very federal Leviathan that's designed this Rube Goldberg nonsense, is touted by me and me alone. Well, Hannity supports it. There's a few others. But nobody ever talks. Today it's, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? The Constitution tells us what to do. Do we not live in an oppressive government with the federal government? Let me tell you what Kennedy and the 4 goose-steppers on the left have unleashed. Endless battles between people of faith and secularists. Endless battles where the federal government has to make decisions and will make decisions for the secularists. The federal government did this. The federal government did Dred Scott. The federal government did Roe v. Wade. The federal government's going to now make these decisions about religion. Oh, they claim they're concerned about privacy. Stay out of the bedroom. They never stay out of the bedroom. They don't stay out of our medicine cabinet. They won't get out of our lives, and now they're in our churches and synagogues and, yes, mosques. It is outrageous that 5 American citizens who happen to go to Ivy League law schools, who do happen to win the lottery, who are nominated to go on the Supreme Court, who are confirmed to go on the Supreme Court, are smarter and wiser than the entirety of the nation. How did that happen? It didn't happen. They're not. They're not. And I can prove it by reading their opinions. They're sophomoric. They're pathetic. They're elementary. But first, the heroes, who must be more frustrated than even we are, having to sit with these people. Scalia, Thomas, and Alito. And Thomas and Alito deserve our attention, too. Scalia writes in part, this practice of constitutional revision by an unelected committee of 9, always accompanied, as it does today, by extravagant praise of liberty, robs the people of the most important liberty they asserted in the Declaration of Independence and won in the Revolution of 1776, the freedom to govern themselves. A system of government that makes the people subordinate to a committee of 9 unelected lawyers does not deserve to be called a democracy. The 5 justices who compose today's majority are entirely comfortable concluding that every state violated the Constitution for all of the 135 years between the 14th Amendment's ratification and Massachusetts permitting same-sex marriages in 2003. They have discovered in the 14th Amendment a fundamental right overlooked by every person alive at the time of ratification and almost everyone else in the time since. Now, Scalia spends a lot of time picking apart these quote-unquote silly extravagances of the majority opinion. Here's just a little taste of it. He says and writes, if even as the price to be paid for a 5th vote I ever joined an opinion for the court that began, quote, the Constitution promises liberty to all within its reach, a liberty that includes certain specific rights that allow persons within a lawful realm to define and express their identity, unquote, I would hide my head in a bag. The Supreme Court of the United States has descended from the disciplined legal reasoning of John Marshall and Joseph Story to the mystical aphorisms of the fortune cookie. Now, Mr. Producer, I use that fortune cookie analogy all the time because it's true.